Hey everybody, I'm James. I'm here today on Capitol Hill with the Rayburn House office building behind me. I'm here today to catch up with Ohio Congressman and Democratic presidential candidate, Dennis Kucinich. Congressman Dennis Kucinich, thank you so much for joining me.
Great to be here. Thank you very much, Jim.
I know you don't have a ton of time, so let's get right to the questions. You are a candidate, you portray yourself as a peace candidate. Your opposition to the Iraq War is pretty well-founded consistently. But I'm wondering, in your opinion, when is it a good idea to go to war, or is it ever a good idea to go to war? What circumstances?
Well, every nation has a right to self-defense. I mean, that's the UN Charter, Article 51, says that every nation has an inherent right to self-defense. So the issue of whether a nation can defend itself is that's not debatable. However, we must know the difference between defense and offense. We went on the offense against Iraq. Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction, had no intention or capability of attacking the United States. So we should have used diplomacy. And see, this campaign is about achieving security, which we all want, through peace. I mean, imagine how much more secure we would be if we had used diplomacy with Iraq, did not illegally invade and occupy this country at the loss of 1 million innocent civilian lives and 3,500 lives of our beloved soldiers. We really have a responsibility to use our higher capacities to solve problems. And weapons in and of themselves are limited in their capacity to be able to solve problems that really have to do with human relations.
Speaking of human relations, one of your big campaign planks is a Department of Peace, creating a Department of Peace. Tell us about that.
Well, I'd like everyone to think about things that go on in a home. Child abuse, domestic violence, spousal abuse. It's a great tragedy in our homes when you consider how many people's lives are scarred by violence that takes place within the home that affects husbands, wives, children. So the idea of a Department of Peace is that we can, through education and through working with groups that currently try to provide services to families and people having difficulties, that we can take a new approach in America, an organized approach to dealing with domestic violence, spousal abuse, child abuse, and many other types of violence. I mean, think about it for a moment. Domestic violence is usually dealt with in courts, in emergency rooms, and sometimes under conditions that are even worse. It's kind of late. What we need to do is to teach children at a very early age how to handle their feelings when they feel strongly against each other, not to hit another child. We need peer mediation to teach that, teach nonviolent conflict resolution. The whole idea about a Department of Peace is a belief that violence is not inevitable, war is not inevitable, that we can take the principles of Dr. King, of Christ, of Gandhi, of other great leaders, and create a nonviolent society, a peaceful society. So I believe in peace on a very deep level, and my candidacy, therefore, really will give people a real choice between those who falsely made a case for war, or who've supported and funded war, and what I stand for, which is really a deep commitment to peace, and understanding that the way that we can be secure as a nation is to have someone who not only believes in peace, but sets forth a structure here at home and among the nations of the world.
I think what some people might ask, though, is it appropriate to address these problems at the federal level? Are these problems that are more aptly dealt with by the states or maybe local governments?
Well, it is a national problem. When you look at violence, it affects our whole culture. You know, there are some who believe that, well, violence is as American as cherry pie, and that it's just a violent culture. I reject that notion. Emerson once said that every jet of chaos which threatens to exterminate us is convertible by intellect into a wholesome force. And so I think that there's an understanding of the importance of being able to use our higher capabilities and not just the science of human relations, but the potential of the human heart. This then becomes a national calling. It's not just about local government. So many local communities, by the way, have signed on and supported the Department of Peace. It's a national movement. There are 1,000 people came to Washington at the beginning of this year to support this, lobbied 250 members of Congress. We now have 62 members of Congress supporting this. And the whole idea is that we have transformative capabilities. And what I want to do as president is to call forth that transformative capability in each person, the same way that John F. Kennedy did. He called forth the desire for people to serve when he said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And what I want to do is call forth that capacity that each of us has to be able to transform our society from one where violence is everywhere to one where peace is everywhere.
Another big domestic issue that people are concerned about is health care. Every Democratic candidate has a plan for reforming health care. Why is yours the best?
Well, mine, actually, it's a plan and it's legislation. It's H.R. 676, the Conyers-Kucinich bill, to establish a universal, not-for-profit health care system. We have to recognize that all these other plans that are out there keep health care where it is, run by private for-profit insurance companies, where premiums, copays, and deductibles go through the roof. We have half the bankruptcies in America right now are connected to people not being able to pay their hospital bills. Why should people have to work a lifetime only to lose everything they ever worked for because they can't pay their hospital bills? So what I'm talking about is a plan that rejects the idea of health care as a privilege. I believe it's a right. It's embodied in legislation, now supported by over 70 members of the United States Congress, 14,000 physicians, hundreds of labor unions, because people recognize that the only way we're truly going to have everyone covered is to get out of for-profit medicine. Now, all these other candidates who have a plan, even though it's not introduced in legislation, all these other candidates who say they have plans still would keep America at the mercy of these for-profit health insurance companies. And until we break those shackles, until we say that health care is a right, not a privilege, we're not going to have everyone covered. My plan provides for vision care, dental care, mental health, long-term care, prescription drugs. We're paying for this right now. We're just not getting it. So I would urge people to go to my website at kucinich.us to get the information about H.R. 676, the Conyers-Kucinich bill. I've been advocating this for years. And think about this. Suppose someone runs for president and they say, we can't take on this challenge. We can't challenge the health insurance companies. That's too much. They have too much control over Washington. What kind of a president would they be if they don't feel that they can use the power of the office to be able to address the single most important economic issue confronting American families, and that is the lack of affordability and lack of access to health care?
Speaking of power to the office, you're also a lot about power to the people. And one way that democracy is changing right now is the rise of technologies like YouTube. You've been one of the leading candidates in responding to people through YouTube videos. When you responded to my video, that was the first time a presidential candidate in American history had ever responded to a YouTube video with a YouTube video of his or her own. Why have you adopted this strategy, and have you found it effective in what you're trying to do?
To me, the essence of government of the people, by the people, and for the people is to respond to people when they contact you. And I've done that for years, whether it's a door-to-door campaigning, responding to correspondence, emails. It's very challenging to do that, of course. And the great number of emails that we get or video messages, I try to select a certain amount of them and respond personally. It's time-consuming, but I think that we make it real, because so much about politics is phony and plastic and insincere and superficial. That's one of the reasons why people don't vote. But when they see someone who understands that electronic technology carries with it the potential for real personal communication with people, I mean, I think voters appreciate that, and to me, it's part of my duty. It's my duty. This isn't just like some kind of election convention. This is my duty.
I think a lot of people on YouTube really appreciate that, so thank you for being one of the leaders in that.